Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching another episode of All Things Bike, a new program about the bicycle, the culture of the bicycle, and the people and the organizations that make the bicycle community roll, here and away. We have a great show for you tonight. We will be speaking with Kim Chamard of the Trek Across Maine, and Melissa Walden of Cycle the Seacoast. So let's get right to it. Melissa?
Nice to meet you.
How do you do? Fred Thomas
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for coming down. It's great to have you. Well, let's just talk about these two rides. Kim, you're affiliated with the Trek Across Maine.
Yes.
Melissa, you're affiliated with the Cycle the Seacoast.
Yes.
Let's start with you, Kim. Tell us about the ride. What should we know?
Well, we're going to be celebrating our 32nd annual ride this year. And what we really always like to say, people aren't always familiar with the fact that
Right.
Obviously the money raised from the Trek Across Maine supports the American Lung Association,
Right.
and it is the largest fundraising event of its kind in the entire nation for the Lung Association. So right here in Maine, we raise the most money out of any other event in the country, and so we're so proud of that.
Amazing. How did that happen? I mean, did someone from the American Lung Association sort of start riding his bike in Maine 30 years ago? Or
It started off
what's the
very
story?
small,
Right.
and actually one of the gentlemen that worked with us for a number of years, he just retired, Ed Miller.
Wow.
A lot of people around the state are familiar with him.
Wow.
He was kind of involved in the beginning stages of it, and I think that the first ride had between 100 and 200 people,
Right,
something
right.
like that, and it was all completely self-supported,
Right.
very low budget, very low key.
But why was it Trek? I mean, that suggests that they're walking. I mean, was it? I mean, because now when the Trek Across Maine comes up on the web, sometimes I think of Trek bicycles or Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the Trek Across Maine. But so they started off with bikes.
Oh,
They,
yes.
they weren't walking or hiking or anything.
No, they've always been cycling, and it's always been 3 days across the state. We've
Right.
had numerous finish lines over the years.
Right.
They've been in Rockland, they've been at Owl's Head, and they've been in Belfast,
yeah.
at the Samoset Resort. So it's kind of moved around a little bit, but
Yeah.
we're pretty well set in our home in Belfast now
Right,
as our
right.
finish line. They're so good to us there, and we really enjoy having
right.
the finish line actually be there. So we start at Sunday River Ski Resort for the first day of the event. We traveled to the University of Maine at Farmington for an
Right.
overnight stop. Then we travel from Farmington to Colby College in Waterville for our second overnight stop. And then we finish up the weekend on Father's Day every
Right.
year, so Sunday Father's Day, right along the water in Belfast. And it's beautiful right down in the park,
Right.
right middle of the city. It's a great place to be.
Wow. So that's 3 days,
Yes.
186 miles.
Yeah, 180 miles
180
approximately, give or take.
180 miles. Wow. Well, that's good. So we're going to come back to some of the details on the Trek Across Maine. So how does that? I mean, how does the Cycle the Seacoast compare? Melissa?
The Cycle of the Seacoast is a totally different ball game.
Right.
It's more for the one-day cyclists that don't want to go for a three-day ride.
Yeah. So Tour de France versus
right.
like Milan-San Remo. I'm talking bicycles here. Sorry, but go on.
okay.
You're right. One-day event, right?
It's a one-day event, but it's really great because it's good for the beginner cyclists because we have a 25-mile route. We have a 50 for the intermediate,
Right.
and then we have 100 for the avid cyclists.
Guys who feel like they've got to prove
Right.
something.
And it's early in the season. It's May 1st, so it's a great first ride of the season because typically people aren't really riding a lot in April,
Right.
depending on what state you're in.
Today, for example,
Right.
snowing.
So it's really great, and in the same aspect, all the money that's raised, it goes to the American Lung Association. So
Right.
Kim and I work together on both events, actually. I primarily do Cycle the Seacoast and her the Trek Across Maine.
Now, have you both done the rides yourselves? Have you done the Trek Across Maine?
Never. I'm not actually a cyclist myself.
okay.
I think the last time I was on a bike was probably in middle school.
Well, there's still time. There's still
There's
time.
still time.
And you didn't forget.
Maybe someday. I mean, working at the event is, I think, sometimes harder than actually
I'm sure
riding
it is. I bet.
kind of managing all the logistical pieces.
I bet.
But maybe someday. You never know.
Well, let's talk about how if I wanted to do it, what I would have to do. I mean, because it's not just, sign up and turn up and ride. There's a little bit more to it. So how does it work for the Trek Across Maine?
Sure. Well, we do have, a registration process and a fundraising minimum that's involved, of course, as it is a fundraising cycling event. So the fundraising minimum is $550 for individuals, $400 for kids under the age of 18. Right. But we always encourage people to really get as much saddle time in as you can as far as training goes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times people will be really intimidated thinking of the full 180 miles all at once, or 60 miles a day all at once. And so we really encourage them to think of it more of rest stop to rest stop. Right. The ride is fully supported by volunteers, medical professionals, and so we have a rest stop along the route each day, approximately every 15 to 20 miles. So when people are kind of getting into the event and really starting to train for it, we like to tell them to think of it in 15-mile increments, 20-mile increments. Right. If you can do 20 miles, you get a break. You can get off your bike. You can stretch. You can get a snack. So we really encourage people to think of it that way. Right. And really, if you're able to get your seat under you and get training in those muscles and really get prepared that way, it's going to make the actual event itself a whole lot easier. Right.
And does that resonate with you and the Cycle the Seacoast? Because it's a smaller thing. It's a classic. It's a one-day event.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I would suggest a little bit of training beforehand. With it being so early in the season, it's a little bit harder. But that's what indoor spin classes are for, I guess.
Yeah, right. And the trainer. But then how about some tips on? Let's say I sign up and then I need to raise $500. I mean, how do I do that? I mean,
well, it's actually, since it's a smaller event in a one-day ride, the minimum fundraising fee is much lower.
Oh, okay.
So for this year, it's $200, and then we do have the $100 minimum for ages 7 to 17. Right. So it's a lot less challenging in that aspect, but you're not committing as much time, and obviously the expenses on our end aren't as much. So it works out. As far as training physically. Just get out as much as you can before.
That's right. But and then in the case of Cycle the Seacoast, it's a one-day loop, so it's not going point to point from Belfast or from Bethel to Belfast.
Right.
Where does it go around?
The start and end is in one place. It's at Red Hook Brewery in Portsmouth.
Oh, right.
So it's kind of like a loop, the 25, and then the 50 is a little bit bigger, and the 100's a little bit bigger than that.
Does that bring you into Maine if you do the 100?
No, it actually goes west instead of east, but it's a nice Seacoast ride, so you get to see the beautiful Portsmouth area.
It's a great area. Now, what else? Is there anything else that we should know about the Trek Across Maine for like this year, for example? I mean, I think there's normally the 3-day, but then there's the 2-day.
Yeah, the 2-day option is new this year. It's sort of always been something we've offered sort of behind the scenes for folks who maybe signed up to ride all weekend and for whatever reason they couldn't get Friday off from work. Their kids may still be in school, whatever happened that way. And so we actually decided this year to really make it a more permanent fixture of the event, something people could actually sign up for at the beginning, is only to commit to those 2 days rather than 3. So the fundraising minimum is a little bit lower for that, $450. And they will start their ride right at Colby College. They'll ride a shorter loop around sort of the Waterville, Oakland area that day, and then finish in Belfast with all the other cyclists.
Right. That makes sense. I did the Trek Across Maine, but I did it in one day because I don't like to camp. I'm not a camper, and it took all day, and I had support, but I can see how the Colby Loop is a little bit more accessible. How about with the Cycle the Seacoast? We're sort of wrapping things up here, but are there any changes or any?
There's no changes. This is our 7th year. No major changes. We have had it in different areas, kind of like the Trek. They've switched up the area a couple times, but same route for the most part as last year.
That's good.
The fundraising minimum has been dropped a little bit.
And registration is soon, right? Or
you can register at any time. You could actually register the day of the event on May 1st.
Perfect.
Obviously, if you're a planner, you might want to do beforehand. But there's no sleeping accommodations typically, unless you're pretty far away. But
right, and that's the same thing with Trek Across Maine. You can.
Yep, registration, our online registration closes on May 20th, but we do still accept registrations after that point by calling and emailing. We do have a variety of volunteer opportunities as well for people who maybe aren't ready to either do the fundraising or ride
right.
the full 180 miles.
Right.
And then there's tons of information on our website, biketreknewengland.org as well. And then the dates for the trek this year are June 17th through the 19th. So it's always on Father's Day weekend.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, when is that to get to? Is that for Dad? I don't know. But anyway, that's great. Look, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much,
Kim,
for having us.
coming down. No, my pleasure.
Thank
you,
you,
Melissa, for giving us the overview on those 2 great charity rides. That is all we have time for today. If you want to learn more about these great charity rides, you can check out the Trek Across Maine on Google and Cycle the Seacoast. You'll find everything you need to know there. And if you'd like to know more about All Things Bike, we're on the web at allthingsbiketv.com, and we're all over Facebook. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.